Welcome to week 5 of Crit 101. This week I'm going to talk about displaying badges. I just issued the second badge only a few days ago, and once I mark work from week 4 I'll be issuing the next badge, and so on. So I thought it was pertinent that you might want to be able to put those badges maybe on your Crit 101 blog, and maybe you want to put them somewhere else, because certainly once you've earned the badges and you've put them in your backpack, you can take them with you and display them wherever you want. So I'm just going to go through how to do that. I'm then going to talk about synthesis and evaluation, which is our focus for week 5, and then as usual I'm going to go through all the things that you need to do during the penultimate week of the course. Badges, well, you've got some, and what do you want to do with them? Well, display them, of course. The whole point of having a badge, it's a visual representation of what you've done, is to be able to show it off to people. And one of the ways that you can do that is by using a tool. It's quite simple to use, called Badge Widget Hack. So I'm just going to go through the steps of using that tool to help you get the code that you need so you can stick your badge on your blog or on your Facebook profile or somewhere like that. So go to badgewidgethack.org, all one word, Badge Widget Hack, and you'll come to a screen that looks like this and ask you if you've got some open badges. So what you need to do is put the email address in that you signed up to your badge backpack with, and that's the same email address hopefully that I've been sending your badges to, so you can claim them. What it will ask you then to do is to select a group for your badges. What you need to do in your badge backpack, and I talked about this when I think in a previous week, was that you can group all of your badges into an area. So in your backpack you need to make a group for your Crit 101 badges. So you select the group where the badge is coming from, and then click Continue. And what it gives you is a piece of code. Looks very confusing, but don't worry about that. What it should show you as well is what that code will look like. So you can see here at this point you've got two badges, which is your Research and Inquiry badge and your Validity and Reliability badge. So that shows you how it's going to display them on your blog. And it doesn't just display the image and the name, but they're both clickable, and it will take anybody who clicks on them through to the evidence page. So it will show them what you did to earn that badge. So this is what I meant about in your backpack. So you can see in my backpack here I've got a couple of badges that I earned when I got started in learning about badges, so I've put those in my Getting Started section. And then you'll see on the next one I've got Crit 101, so I've made an area for my Crit 101 badges. So you need to make sure you've done that, and what's really important is that you've ticked public. If you don't tick the public box in the bottom left corner of the section, you won't be able to find your badges on Badge Widget Hack when you put your email in. So you've got to make sure that you've made your badges public. And that's that. I mean, that's all there is to it. That code that it gives you, you can take it and you can paste it into a widget on your blog. You can paste it into your Facebook profile. I think you get areas that you can kind of put code into. Anywhere that will take a bit of HTML will allow you to display your badge that you've earned. So, if you've got any other questions about that, please just let me know via email or Twitter, and I'll try and help you out. Let's move on to this week's focus, which is synthesis and evaluation. We're coming towards the end of the course, and so naturally we might argue that evaluation is kind of coming at the end, because that's one of the sort of final stages in the process of, say, research, or in the process of inquiry. So what is it? Well, let's start with synthesis. Synthesis is the idea that we're going to combine ideas to form a new whole. And really, if we're completely honest, we've been doing synthesis as a skill already within the course. So in week 2, when you did your research project, one of your tasks was to draw together various sources of data and triangulate that information. So you've already been doing synthesis a little bit. But what I want to do this week is to get you to think about it just a little bit more carefully and to develop that skill. In a nutshell, it's about taking separate pieces, like these eggs here, and combining them into a more fuller whole. And that's really important. I think it's about having a whole understanding of something. So it's not about them being disparate elements anymore and having separate meaning, but it's about the way that you combine that meaning and form a fuller, more deeper understanding of the topic that you've been exploring. Evaluation is the process of drawing conclusions and making judgments. And that's really, really key. And again, we've been doing that a little bit as the course has gone along as well, because every week you've been asked to reflect and kind of evaluate your progress. So you've been judging how you've been getting on. And then suddenly in week 3, when you were measuring the validity and the reliability, we would argue that that's an evaluative process. So again, these are skills that we've encountered along the way. What I think is important, though, is to recognize that these are very, very important skills, and cognitively, they're perhaps the most difficult to develop, to do well. I know that students sometimes, when we talk about this, they're convinced that they are good evaluators and reasonably good synthesizers, but I think that, yes, you don't need to be very, very able to be able to kind of look at something and make a judgment about it. The quality of the judgment that you make, or how well informed that judgment, though, that takes time to develop, and is something that comes from doing good critical analysis, which was our focus for last week, and then being really able to kind of look at a range of sources and bring them together effectively. So I think cognitively these skills are quite important. Here we have a famous taxonomy known as Bloom's, and it presents things in this triangle, and certainly synthesis and evaluation are placed at the top. Now, while I wouldn't agree that necessarily learning is linear, and certainly you can evaluate something even before you like analyze it, and certainly you can evaluate before you apply knowledge by like creating or making something. You know, you might evaluate the process of putting something together before you go ahead and do it, because you might want to check that you've got all of the stages right in advance. It's something I do with my film students, which is where we, you know, look at their storyboard in detail and really evaluate and analyze and critique it before I let them go off and make their film. So it's not necessarily the case that these things are always developed in a linear fashion. However, what I would agree with, and what the triangle to me here does represent, is that synthesis and evaluation are important skills, and to be done well, they're skills that take time to develop, and certainly knowledge and comprehension, those more basic skills, come before them. Another taxonomy that's just kind of interesting and is very popular at the moment, has a lot of coverage in the education community, is the SOLO taxonomy, Structure of Observed Learning Outcomes. What I like about this taxonomy is that it allows students to kind of judge where you're at, and that's something I've been asking you to do as you go along, and something that you're going to do even a bit more in the final week, when we do our kind of final reflection and evaluation of both your learning and the course. But certainly, it talks about this pre-structural stage, which is before you learn something, you might have a little bit of pre-knowledge just from life experience, but you don't really know a lot. And then you work through stages. Synthesis and evaluation come into play more towards the latter end in this taxonomy as well, particularly in the relational stage, where you are taking information from different areas of the unit or the topic and combining them together to form a related understanding. So there we can see that idea of synthesis again. Synthesis comes once you've kind of developed understanding of different areas. So you're working your way through a unit. So we've been learning about being an independent learner or an interdependent learner, and different skills that can support that. So what I'm asking you now, perhaps at this latter stage, is to start to draw some of those skills and that learning together into a related set of kind of criteria, things that you can use to, like, when you come at your next activity or you come at something in one of your other subjects, that you can draw together those range of skills. So the different processes of research, recognizing validity and reliability, being able to critically analyze a text effectively, these skills can combine together to make you a more critical, a more efficient and more able learner. The extended abstract in Solo is where we really start to kind of judge things and apply knowledge in different situations. And that's kind of what I want you to do in this week's project, and I'll say more about that shortly. But, you know, it is about not just making a judgment on what you've learned or what you know, but can you apply that knowledge in sort of different scenarios and think about it in more abstract ways. And that's kind of a really key and important skill. So I just wanted to share those ideas with you. They are just theories and they're quite useful, but I'm just trying to kind of develop your thinking here a little bit about the processes of synthesis and what evaluation actually is. The other thing that I want to draw your attention to this week is this notion of information literacy. Throughout the course, and several of you in your blog posts have discussed this, you've been developing a lot of skills in terms of your use of just like technology, for example, in putting information across through blogging or using Twitter to discuss things and getting into Google Docs and collaborating with different people in different ways. And there are a range of skills that I would argue are very important in developing your use of information. You do live in a world where information is kind of freely available, and there is a very naive view, I think, from adults at times, and even some teachers, that students, just because the internet is there, one, they will use it, and one, they know how to use it properly. And becoming a more effective independent learner, or even an interdependent learner, is about learning to use that information effectively. And so we can look at these 6 terms that I've taken here and track what we've done across the course so far. In that we started off with a research project, and I asked you to go away and locate and gather information. So you were identifying useful tools, you were selecting the right tool for the job, you were locating different sources of information, and bringing that information together. Last week you've been doing some analysis, which is really, really important. You know, if you're going to go into the world and be a critical kind of learner and go and not take things on face value, you need to be able to break a text down, whether that text is a traditional book or whether that is something you read on the internet. And then we come to stages like creating, synthesizing, and evaluating, which we're at the latter stage. Well, we've been creating as you go along. You've been creating blog posts and documents. You're going to create this week as well in a small group. But synthesizing and evaluating, I think, are really, really integral skills to becoming information literate and therefore to becoming a more effective independent learner. Because being able to take, as I've said several times already, this idea of taking different sources of information is massively important. And when you're breaking down, say, a Wikipedia article, as you were doing last week, they've drawn from a range of different sources to put that article together, and it really helps us to understand where those sources came from, what we think about the validity of those sources, the reliability of those sources, but also to form our own opinions about those sources, to form a more fuller understanding, that whole understanding that I was talking about just a moment ago. And then we've got to be able to evaluate all the time. I think as a critical learner, you're constantly making judgments. I know that I do. Whatever I read, wherever it's come from, I make a value judgment about it. And I look at a range of criteria in doing so. And I try to consider how new information impacts on my thinking. Because as you get older and the more that you learn, you start to formulate certain ideas and ways of thinking. But we must try to remain open to new ideas, to different people's points of view, and what we must try and do is evaluate those things and then try and synthesize them or bring them into our whole understanding of different areas. This is about lifelong learning as much as anything else, and the more information literate you can be, the easier you're going to find it to keep learning in the future as you go on, maybe that's into university, maybe into postgraduate study, or just into the world of work. I want you to become a critical learner, somebody who thinks about these things as you go along. So that's what this week is all about. It's about drawing together what you've learned on the course. It's about drawing together your understanding about some of the things you've been reading, and it's about putting some of that, making judgments and evaluating some of that information to form a more fuller conclusion, perhaps. So, let's talk about what I've put out there for you to read. There's some reading on taxonomies for you to have a look at, just to give you a bit more information. You might be interested in that. Certainly it's going to give you a little bit of insight maybe into kind of, you need to ask questions about the way you learn and what stages you think you're at in terms of your learning, both on the course, but you might also think more generally. Think about your school education and think about where you would position yourself. Certainly I've put some information about synthesizing, like nice online tutorial about how to draw different sources together. I've put some information in there about information literacy itself and the different skills that we've been kind of developing on the course. So you should see that some of the things that you'll be reading there will strike very closely to the different skills that you've been employing as you go along. So that's your reading for this week. Twitter discussion will be on Wednesday the 10th of April, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock British Standard Time. So I hope to see as many of you as possible there for our penultimate chat. Now, this week's assignment then. I'm not done with chickens, nor am I done with eggs. So the chicken is going to remain the proverbial monkey on your back, as it were, and we're going to try and do this, which is to make a collaborative video in a small group under the title Chicken or Egg. It's going to be your final collaborative task, so there's 2 badges up for grabs this week. There is your synthesis and evaluation badge, which you can earn through the project, and you can also earn your collaborative badge by completing the final collaborative project. The title, again, is very open, and it's up for you to kind of interpret it as a group, what you want to do with it. You could treat it very much as an argument if you wanted to, and present different points of view. You could take one single track. I completely leave that up to you to kind of figure out. You need to draw upon your research and reading about chickens and eggs. So, project you did earlier in the course, and then certainly the article that you've just been analysing in the previous week. I want you to draw your conclusions together, synthesize that information. That's what the project is all about. Just going to go through a bit of guidance on making the video. There are a few rules, and I've got just a few bits tips and bits of advice and things that you can kind of look to help you in completing this task. So I'm going to give you a Google document. It'll be an area where you can kind of discuss and plan your response. I've put a lot of this information that's on here into the document already for you, just to kind of make it really clear what you've got to do. Each of you in your group must contribute 30 to 40 seconds of video. Okay. It could be as simple as talking into your webcam or into your phone, or it could be something more involved with like images, pictures, background music. It's up to you. I mean, you can really go to town if you want to, and 1 or 2 groups last time around made some really interesting kind of creative responses to this task. The maximum length for the video is 2 minutes. So if you're in a group of 3, for example, the maximum you should be doing is 40 seconds each, and that would give you 2 minutes of total video altogether. You could use Dropbox. I've put some instructions here. Dropbox is, some of you will be already aware of it probably, but it's free to sign up, and you can have a shared folder and collate the videos, and one person in the group needs to take responsibility for piecing together the final video, so taking each person's parts and putting them together in a right order and sticking that video on YouTube. Okay, and then please, whoever does that, put the link to that video into the Google document or onto Twitter somewhere, so that everybody can embed their video into their blog post. YouTube has its own video editor, so if you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't have a lot of equipment, upload the video to YouTube. You can either do that straight from your phone, or you can do it via your computer. And then once the video is on YouTube, YouTube has a great little video editor. Just some very basic things. You can crop video, you can change bits of the timing, you can cut bits out, trim things. But there's a guide as well, which I've put a link to. So that's a tool that you can use if you're not blessed with lots of equipment on your home computer. Please don't use any copyrighted material. Your own material or Creative Commons material, and I've put a link to Creative Commons to explain what that kind of means. So please have a look at that. Make sure that you're not using anything that's been copyrighted in your video. If you're really not sure what to do, and if you're a bit camera shy and don't want to be on screen, I've just put a link to a video I had to make. I did a course a little bit like this last year, and they asked us to make some video, and so I've put a link to my contribution just so you can see that you don't have to be on camera. You can do some great things just with some really simple things with really pictures, and just put something together that is interesting. So that's an example of what you might want to have a go at doing. Depending on what operating system you've got, so if you're on a Mac, you'll be using OS X. All Macs come with a built-in camera, a built-in webcam into their laptops and things, so you could use that to film. QuickTime, which is what I'm actually using right now to record this video, has a screen capture utility, so you can have stuff happening on your screen and then talk at the same time, so you could use a tool like that. You could get together and use Google Plus Hangouts on Air. So as you've got a Google Drive account, you've also got a Google Plus account. You can hang out together and you could discuss the topic. That would be a nice way of synthesizing, I suppose, because it would bring all 3 of you or 4 of you in your group together into one space and you could talk about your topics. That's an interesting tool that you might want to check out. iMovie is obviously built into a Mac if you buy it, so you can use that for editing, and as I've already mentioned, you can use the YouTube video editor because you just need an internet connection to be able to access YouTube to use that one. If you're on Windows, you might have a built-in webcam. I know a lot of laptops do come with them now, but you might also have an external webcam. There's a free tool called Cam Studio which you can download, which does the same thing as QuickTime Screen Capture, which lets you capture whatever's happening on your screen. Again, you could use Google Plus Hangout on Air if you're using Windows. And Windows comes with, most machines come with Movie Maker built in, which is like their Windows equivalent to iMovie, and you can cut some video together in that. Obviously, I've already mentioned this, but you can use your devices. So if you've got an Android phone, you can record. Usually, they've got a reasonably good camera in. You can record some video that way. You can certainly use your iPhone or your iPad. You might even be blessed and have the iMovie app on your iPad or your iPhone, and you could even edit your video on the phone or the iPad itself. So use the tools that are at your disposal and just have fun with this project is kind of what I'm suggesting. Then I want you to do a blog post, write a blog post reflecting on both the process of creating and editing the video, and also reflect on how this activity has contributed to your development as an interdependent learner. And then finally, do please keep commenting. A few of you are, and then one or two of you not quite as much. So please, it's really important to comment on each other's work and encourage each other, particularly in these final last couple of weeks as we come to the end of the course. And then finally, as usual, just the reminders. All information for each week of the course is on the blog. So this video is up on week 5, and there's lots of other information and useful material for you about synthesis and evaluation to be read there. All the tweets are on Twitter. We're using the hashtag Crit101, so please check them out. Instructions on claiming badges can be found in week 3. It was week 3 that I went through that. So between week 3 and this week, you've got all the information you need for both claiming your badges and then also displaying them. But again, as I said, if you've got questions, let me know. You can contact me via email or Twitter. So that is week 5. It's synthesis and evaluation. We're making video. I really look forward to seeing what you come up with. I'll be back in a week's time with week 6, which is our reflection on your learning and also reflecting on the course itself. And with that, I bid you adieu.